That's media.
All right, family, we want to welcome you to Divine Conversations. And we here with Miss Julian Deas. Miss Jillian Deas, and she has just come into the room. So let's give it up for Miss Jillian.
Yay. How are you
So
all?
doing good. How about yourself?
Living, man.
All right, well, we up and we live and we're streaming right now. And you did an excellent talk last week for the 2 weeks ago for Divine Conversation, and it's now time for us to have a follow-up conversation. Now, what we have popping off is we have people that we will be directly in here with us. And then we also have family members that are watching, and some that will be calling in on the black line. So hopefully everything will work. If not, we'll make adjustments. Family, those of you that's out there that's watching on gnj.media, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on our side or whether you're on Twitch, you can just type in your comment and it will show on the right-hand side of the screen. All right.
A quick correction, bro. So a couple weeks back was Quran. Today is Divine Conversation.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Don't we all?
So why don't you open us up, bro?
All right, we're well, again, it's good to have you, Jillian. And as much as we are dealing with a lot, we are going to
Why it's so hard to get into, y'all?
open the floor. Give us a brief synopsis of some of the things you covered last week, and then we can have a family discussion over those matters.
That sounds good. So 2 weeks ago when I spoke with you guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple weeks ago when I spoke with you guys, there was two things I spoke about. And one of those was the power of positivity. One was the power of intention. And in those, we discussed how language and behavior and social modeling are important in the power of positivity and bringing positive experiences into your life and manifesting them. The power of intention was focused on how we intentionally choose our activities, our entertainment choices, how we allocate our time intentionally, and the foods that we put in our body, and how those play out and can create positive intentions in our life, and how that can impact our bodies, our souls, our minds. And the main takeaway is trying to replace negative language with positive language, replace positive thoughts, put those positive thoughts into your life, whether it's about you, about your children, about grandchildren, about family members, about friends and coworkers. And you can do this by role modeling. You can do this by just talking to each other and using positive words and intentionally positive words.
Hold on for a second, Miss Jillian. We have some feedback on the mic. Somebody is listening to the presentation and participating in the presentation. Please turn off the background sound.
Okay. It was reverberating at once, so I think it seems like it stopped. Yep. So example of some negative language and positive words, I can go ahead and emphasize that. So an example of something that even my son just said this morning. We were making lemonade for Sunday morning because he chose to make lemonade with lemon, sugar, and water. But he got frustrated and said, I can't make lemonade because I can't squeeze the lemons. And I had to change his negative language because saying that I can't do something is a very negative way to say something. And I corrected him to say, no, unable to squeeze. the lemon, how to squeeze lemons because you're 3, and that's okay. And you'll be able to do it, but you're still learning. The important part to that is saying that he's still learning and allowing himself grace and still learning. And that can apply for kids or adults. I think sometimes we all have to remind our own selves, we're still learning. I'm personally in a grad school program and graduating in May, but I've still learned the whole process, and I'm still learning in the middle of my thesis because I've never had experience with that before. So even myself, I have to remind myself all the time, I'm still learning, and that's okay. It doesn't matter where my peers are. So that's an example of that negative language and positive words. So one other one that I want to maybe chime in that I didn't emphasize in my original presentation was, instead of telling someone to stop crying, let them know that it's okay to cry. This is something that I've really tried to emphasize to my friends, and me having a young boy. Sometimes it's easy to want them to stop crying. Maybe the noise is irritating, or you feel like the reason they're crying isn't a valid reason. But a lot of research has found that just makes it a lot worse, and doesn't instill any, strength in them. It doesn't instill grit in them. It doesn't instill anything positive in them by telling them to stop crying. It's okay to let them know it's okay to cry. Maybe if they are being a little dramatic about the situation, tell them it's okay to cry, and then maybe talk them down as to why don't have to always cry about the situation. Those are ways to do it, and it might sound like you're talking to a child if you do that with an adult, but it still applies. Everything that we teach kids for somehow still applies to us as adults, because we are always learning. In the education field, we say always becoming. You're always becoming something new, and a better educator, a better teacher, a better somebody. So there's always room to keep learning and growing. There was 4 takeaways that I had, like 4 main bullet points that I wanted to see from this. And one of them was to boost your energy by doing these intentional positive changes. If you smile more, if you reframe how you think, it helps you build resilience, because life will always still happen, regardless of how much positivity you have in your life. Life is about all the hurdles you can climb over and how you attack them. Decreasing health decline or incidences. So what this means is that by intentionally integrating these positive ideas and choices into your life, it could lead to less heart attacks or coronary events, and decline by 5 to 25 years. So this happens because you decrease your stress levels. Your blood pressure doesn't rise as often because of the situation, or your body's equipped to deal with things in a healthier way. The 3-word tagline that I used, and I think it was the emphasis of all this, was to practice, reflect, and repeat. So practice, reflect, repeat. You practice a new skill or a new intention, a new positive application. You reflect. Is this working? Is this helping? Did this actually meet the action that I thought it was going to? I put this practice into action. Did it actually do what I thought it would? If it did, repeat. If it didn't, change it up and repeat. Practice, reflect, repeat. And lastly, generational change will come when you influence your life internally to have more intentionally positive thoughts and actions. Those around you will start to adapt through what's known as social diffusion. That helps. That basically means kids see you behave a certain way, they start to behave that certain way. So one example I can give is that me and my son do affirmations, and I think I actually started doing affirmations with my son before I ever did them with me. So that was the instance where I knew it was really important for him to learn how to love himself and understand that he's worthy and special and smart and all those things. And then teaching him to do that, I kind of had to reteach myself, and it was very helpful. But it was something I intentionally did as a parent, and with a lot of positive intention, and it diffused to myself kind of in a backwards way. but it helps. So that's basically what I covered.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ready for questions.
You said repeat. It was three words that you used. Can you repeat those words so I can put it in the chat?
Yep. That was practice, reflect, repeat.
Practice,
Reflect, repeat.
Is it reflex or is reflect? Like, okay, like I'm gonna look at it and repeat.
Yep. You're gonna look back at what you've done. You're gonna reflect on what you've done, and then you're gonna decide: do I repeat or do I change and repeat? Yep.
So I'm gonna try to open up the lines. If you are listening to some stuff in the background, please try to stop. Now, those that's calling in on the black line, hopefully you're watching too. Now, what we need is, because I don't think we can hear you. Well, I don't think she can hear you on the black line. So go and ask your question. I'll repeat your question for her so she can hear it. And you can also throw up questions on the chat. Ms. Jillian, can you see the chats?
Yep, I can see the chat.
All right, so y'all can also communicate with her in the chats. Any questions or anything we want to discuss?
I have a question. Elder Phyllis, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. And I wanted to talk about your practice, reflect, and repeat, which you said if we do that, intergenerational change will come. And my question to you is, I think that this is very appropriate for younger people, but how do you get adults to do that? Old adults.
So I like to use food with older adults because for me, me and my Uncle Kwame, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm almost like a food snob because I've learned about how important it is to choose foods that we put in our body. So with older adults, it might be easier to change the way they eat food than the way they think about life sometimes. So introducing them to maybe vegetarian options that are like, wow, this actually doesn't taste like cardboard. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Or you can sneak it in. Like the main thing I sneak in with my friends and adults, I might make tacos or burritos, but I use a substitute meat. So I don't use ground beef. And they eat it and they're like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, that wasn't real meat.
Right.
And they're like, huh? You know, they're mind blown. And then they comment like, wow, I don't feel really bloated. Or I make a lot of Chinese food at home too. I'll make food without gluten, especially when it's Chinese. I'll make it with gluten, so no soy sauce and things like that. My friends are like, I ate a full plate, and I don't feel nasty and greasy and gross. So I help them understand that, like, by changing the food you put in your body, you feel better. That might mean you bring a plate of gluten-free mac and cheese to a cookout and they try it and they're like, wow, this is great. And you don't tell them until later. I might get yelled at, right? But I think they'll recognize eventually how that feels in your body and then they'll actually implement it and know that it doesn't actually taste like cardboard or those kind of things. Or dairy. Yeah, I used almond milk in this. You probably noticed because you don't have any mucus in your mouth. Things like that.
Okay. Well, I am allergic to wheat, so I have to do gluten free, and I have tricked a lot of people into my cakes.
Yep.
Because they didn't know, and I'd be like, "Well, it's gluten free." They're like, "Really?" Yeah.
The way I'm learning to do it too is to go take people to restaurants that have stuff like that. So there's a couple restaurants that I like in Columbus right now that have like jackfruit, and I got a friend who's like all into pork still and all that. I'm like, just try it. Kind of tastes like pulled pork.
Right.
They tried it. They're like, they ate half the bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the easiest way with adults. You know, the emotional stuff is harder. What I do with my friends I'm 20, I'm 25. So my friends are middle, at this 25 place where it's just weird. But, my female friends, they'll call me and they'll complain about themselves and start to kind of self-hate on them. And I stop them. I'm like, no, you're not about to keep talking about yourself like that. You weren't stupid because you made a bad decision. You trusted somebody, which is an okay trait. It's okay to trust people. You just have to learn how to have discernment with it. And that's okay because you're still learning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It is harder with adults, though, of course.
I
Some
know.
kids after about 5, though, it's hard with them too. I think it just takes patience and like you keep repeating, and eventually it sticks.
But the practice, reflect, and repeat is really good thing. I also want to tell you that you talked about, I don't want to hog up the line. This is my last time, but I got a lot of notes and I had a lot of questions, but I don't want to be the only one talking. But I enjoyed your when you said you had to total up the number of hours that you had in a week, and you had to subtract out the time you needed to cook, the time you needed to do your homework, the whole 9 yards. And I have been procrastinating about getting rid of clothes in my closet.
Yeah.
And I am using that to help me. I started out with saying, well, I'll do a half an hour a day. Well, I'm down to 15 minutes a day. That I know I can do 15 minutes. And then maybe once I get started, I will increase it. But I appreciate that concept because it gave me another way to look at doing something that I need to do but don't want to do.
Right. It's in the grand scheme of things, like that is exactly what you're saying. That 168 hours idea was not original for me. I got it. I took a seminar at a conference for the National Society of Black Engineers, and there was someone who presented about their 4.0 plan. How do you get a 4.0 in your engineering classes in college? And this woman, she emphasized, you take your 168 hours that you have every week, and you allocate them accordingly, and you follow a plan. You say, like you're saying with dealing with your clothes, you get really specific about your times. 1 second. I can't find my Okay, go look in your room. Take 2 minutes to look, and I'll help you. I couldn't find it. Okay.
I think that's adorable. I think it's adorable. So don't apologize.
It's okay. I take class. I work online too, so he should.
Okay.
But yeah, like that. For because I'm still in college, the way I implemented that first was I would take a specific class and a specific assignment, and say, from this time to this time, I'm working on just that assignment. I better finish in that time frame because I don't have any other time to spare in my week to do it.
Right.
And I know that. So it just helps you be really accountable for what your time is. And hey, I'm slacking. Like, this is a productivity issue on my end because I didn't finish this in 2 hours. So
very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jillian, what's your middle name?
My middle name is Lorraine.
And that is named for?
I don't know. No clue.
That's perfectly okay. So yeah, Mama Phyllis was talking about, the old saying, trying to teach an old dog new tricks. And even understanding the difficulty in that, when there are changes that need to be made, and some of us old dogs are really stubborn about changing our ways.
So, Jillian.
Mama Phyllis, were you?
I can hear.
Okay. So in teaching these dogs, old dogs, new tricks, tell us about one of your experiences with that, whether it be with family, friends, or whatever, the kind of resistance you got, and what was your resolve in terms of what you would have to, quote unquote, be at peace with?
So I think I'm gonna stick on the topic of food because that's just where my heart is now. I have a friend who uh, he's very close to his parents still, and I've been around my friend for years, so I reckon I know his family. I know the way they cook foods at dinners and things like that. And I've really emphasized to him a lot of times that him and his family have to change their diet because both parents are older and have dietary or not dietary but health issues. And so does he. And one of the things that I was met with when I was like, maybe just try to cut bacon. Was like, why would I cut bacon? That a breakfast meal, a meal's without the meat. And I'm like, this is very confusing to me. As long as you're meeting the dietary needs of your body, it's complete. I've also mentioned like how about incorporating a salad into the diet. And he's like, a salad can't be filling. That doesn't really fill me up. But then I sent him a picture of a salad I make that has maybe carrots, tomatoes, blueberries, avocado, maybe some salmon on there, and spinach leaves. And I'm like, this is a full salad, and this will fill you up. So food's also often the hardest one, I think, but it's the easiest to incorporate. I think the mental thinking, some folks think of themselves, but some people don't. They hit a certain age marker and not realize that out of those 168 hours that you have, you spend 10 of those hours maybe indulging in some type of, something like weed. And I'm like, if you took that 10 hours a day, you claim you don't have money. You take those 10 hours a day, you don't spend it on that, and you maybe work or do some professional development. That time becomes actually lucrative and valuable for you and not wasted. So there's different ways, but I think the hard part is just that old dogs don't believe they're the best, and they get rooted in the idea that I'm stuck in my life where it's been working for me so far. They use that kind of phrasing. And my friend who's saying about the food, their dad was just put in the hospital because of salmonella poisoning. They bought some food from somewhere they probably shouldn't have. And I'm like, I don't want to say it's a wake-up call for them, but yeah. Right now, entering the hospital for a Black man that's over the age of 50, like that's very dangerous because of all the COVID implications and other things like that. It's not a healthy thing to happen. So it's a wake-up call for that family. And I just hate to see it when it gets to that point that it has to be a wake-up call. Because in the Black community, I think sometimes it takes for someone to have a funeral for everybody to realize, like, wow, we should all make some changes in our lives.
I want to share with you, some of the things that within Jinyame that Brother Hatem had implemented, but a number of us joined in. So we start off, with what's called a 21-day challenge. And, when I was meeting with some of the elder men, I was like, fellas, our women are kind of looking good at their age. So we need to tighten up, right? And so I charged them with, look, I don't care if you just drink more water in your day. Start off there, 21 days.
Yep.
Start with that. Brother Hatem goes on this fast, and it would take Navita to describe it to you, but so I'll leave that to her. But he'll go on a 21-day fast. What I did, starting last March, was I just said, okay, I'm gonna get out the house and walk a mile a day. And my 21 days were up. And Jillian, I didn't stop walking a mile a day until maybe about 3 weeks ago when it started getting really cold and crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Just to
It's
corroborate and reaffirm what you're saying, just take a step at a time.
and I think you're right. I think that's where I get the practice reflect, repeat. So the practice you were implementing was walking an hour a day. After 21 days, you reflected. I kind of like how this makes you feel, and you kept going. You repeated it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Someone put in the question in the chat a little bit ago about the different backgrounds in language. They said, how do you deal with a different background language, Espanol as an example? I think I want to come to this now because I think language is important, but also culture. So culturally, there are some things that are hard to take out, right? I had a friend who was natively raised in India, and when she came over to America for grad school, she, told me, she's like, I had to cut out rice because I didn't realize that I ate rice 3 times a day, and that wasn't exactly healthy or normal. But for her, that's how she culturally was raised. So she kind of was like, ooh, it's been really hard to cut out rice 3 times a day, but that's what I did. So maybe in certain cultures, like in Spanish cultures, and they all vary depending on their nationality. I have a friend, one of my best friends, who's Mexican, and I've been to a lot of their family gatherings. And what's interesting about them is when they have their gatherings, whether it's for a children's birthday party, a quinceañera, or something like that, they do a really good job of covering any alcohol that's there. You don't see it. So most of the beverages that are out are for anybody, and they're not, not alcohol, anything. And the alcohol is kind of normally in a cooler off to the corner where only the adults would look, or they'll cover up the alcoholic bottles. And I think I actually enjoy that because it doesn't promote the alcohol to the kids. There's no accidental transfer of the kids drinking it because they just don't even notice it. So that's one cultural practice. I'm like, I like that. I appreciate that because that's just an adult thing that they're going to engage in, whether it's a good thing or not. Culture to me, I think, is just the practices you engage in with your family or with your immediate circle or influence. That could be things that are passed down ancestrally. That could be things you engage in, like here in the tribe, you guys engage in a lot of certain cultural practices. That's for me what culture is. I don't think it's tied to necessarily a race or a nationality or an ethnicity. It can be kind of transferable, but it's typically safeguarded by some source of like you're either in or you're out.
Un momento, querida. ¿Qué significa quinceañera?
How significant are quinceañeras?
¿Qué significa quinceañera?
What is a quinceañera?
Eso es.
You tested my Spanish. A quinceañera is a cultural practice that a lot of Hispanic families, especially Mexican families, engage in when a kid comes to the age of 15. So that is kind of their come of age celebration that they engage in culturally.
We have a question on well, actually is a two-part. It says sometimes I think this is Elder Eunice. She says sometimes I think our people, black people, use cursing to express themselves. What do you think of this type of expression?
Yeah, I this is
Give me that bag right there. I got there for a while.
I'm sorry, what's wrong?
We might get some examples here. So I think it's interesting because I don't think cursing or using explicit language is specific to Black people, but I know exactly what you mean. Because there are some times, even in my household, that I get a little frustrated and I let my son know, like, hey, I've asked you this message like 4 times. And I might drop a word and he realizes how serious I am because I've dropped the word. I think sometimes it's used as a term to express ourselves because, and I don't want to say we lack language, but it's been used so traditionally that it has certain meanings that aren't necessarily in the dictionary. So there's a 4-letter word that starts with the letter S and ends with the letter T. That word can be used in a lot of different scenarios. And I remember back in like 5th grade when my PEAK teacher talked about it. And he talked about how people use that to explain bowel discharge, or they use that just to say they're bored. So like I think that's the difficulty with those cursing terms, those explicit terms, because they mean a lot of things for us, and they kind of add color to our language sometimes, even though standard American English wouldn't recognize it that way. They wouldn't put that as a figurative language, but I think for some of our brains, we interpret it that way. So it isn't always just the worst thing ever to say those kind of words. I do practice using better words that my son can repeat. And that's what I care about. Someone asked about the social modeling as well in the private chat. Modeling behavior. Me not cussing is a big way that I model how I talk. Because when I do say some words that are explicit, my son's like, Mommy, you're not supposed to say those words. Those are bad words. And I'm like, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use those words. And I change up what I said because he's right. I've taught him that those are bad words. And now I'm not modeling it. So I choose to use better words that I choose to use, words that I can actually type in my academic papers, or as a teacher, I can't get up in front of my classrooms and use those terms. So they don't fit into the practice of my daily living. For most of us, they don't. I know for me, I have professors who will say them, and I think too negatively of them about it. But I don't love it. So understanding where you are in your life and your space, and if you can learn how to code switch it, great. If you can't, trying to get rid of it altogether is really helpful.
If I might, I'd add a couple of perspectives there. So I don't know if you knew or not, but Jillian, I had taken Spanish up into the graduate level.
I did. You taught it over here at the plaza, right?
It's hard to remember.
On Mount Vernon?
No, I didn't teach over there. But the background was that I did work with Mexican families. I did some translation for them. Some Dominicans also on the West Side. Where was the other one? But all that just to say that as brothers and sisters coming out of Africa, we had modes of expression that could not be captured with the limited vocals of the English, in many cases, the Romance languages. And so what ended up happening was that when we got to these parts, the West, whether you're talking about in Brazil with Portuguese, or the Haitians with French, and the French hate that notion, but or the brothers and sisters who ended up in Cuba, Puerto Rico, etc. But in this linguistics class I was taking at Ohio State, the professor was saying that in their circles, they were speaking about the most innovative examples they've seen in languages where those Romance languages like the Portuguese, French, and Spanish had met with the African, and the African had such an innovative factor on it that it's come to what it is today. In many respects, like the African effect on the English language. There was that aspect of it. The other aspect is escaping me right now, um, but I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you're right. Like it's unfortunately a lot of our perspective that we're conditioned to understand here is just based on a very like microcosm of American expectations and whatever standards they want to come to for a lot of reasons. So I think you're right when you look at other languages and cultural practices and the way they integrate languages and things like that. It's not as forsaken as it is here in America. I think it's viewed that way and it's taught that way because just for divisive measures. Because if anything, at this point in day and age, I would have loved to not hear the past president say good about every single thing he used as an adjective. It meant nothing, right? But that wasn't a word that was considered explicit. Even though for a man his age, that was a terrible word to continue to use. Hi.
And in his case, he always spoke in hyperbole. So you could.
There was a lot of language classes that could be had on many of those speeches. Because when I was raised in school, those were some of the words that we called dead words. Very, we don't use very. That's a very first grade level word.
And then to bring this around back home. Uh-oh.
You okay?
Yeah, it sounded like it went dead. But anyway, so, but to bring it back around, so there are family members who feel quite comfortably using such language. And, I'll just be specific. One of the shows on our Jinyame Journey Media is a program called Blunt Talk. And it's raw. And, my brother Hatim and sister Navita, and brother Lunala and sister Sugarfoot, they all be talking explicitly. And it may offend some. But my advice to those who it offends would always be to turn the channel. However, we cannot go policing what we're saying to each other unless between them they're crossing limits and they know when they're crossing limits. And so it can be an intricate matter. Now, you know how I speak. You've heard me in family meetings and stuff like that. When it gets hot, I tend to go cold so as to balance off the passions. But again, these are skills that are learned.
Right.
And we get a lot of practice.
Life is about practice, right? I think you're right. And I think it's like the hard thing to understand is that there is no one way to get passionate about something. And there is no one appropriate way to react when something bothers you. And so what I wish for those who get really bothered and flustered because someone used a explicit language or explicit word that they didn't approve of is you just have to choose. You have to choose what you allow to take your energy. Like it's not worth your energy. Like if that's the language they choose to engage in, pray for them, do whatever you want for their self-worth and their self-expression and go on about your day. I don't think I used this example in my previous session, but that's part of that intentional positivity. Choosing what energies you allow to bother you or to affect you or to shift you, it's a choice. And whatever choice you make in that you will allow to affect your day. So the example I like to use, because it comes up almost like once a week for me, is that say I'm in a line for something. Like I'm waiting maybe at a grocery store and there's lines, we're at Kroger or Walmart. And those checkout lines are sometimes really long, especially on Sundays, right? some people will get bothered and they'll be standing there in line, kind of like complaining to themselves, cussing, doing everything they're doing to try to pass the time because they're so frustrated that they have to wait. For me, personally, it doesn't bother me. The reason it doesn't bother me is because I plan my time and I know that I might stand in line because the lines are always there. But also, I don't know what the universe is protecting me from by putting me in that line. I don't know what higher power is stopping me from getting into a car accident as soon as I leave into the parking lot, or getting hit by a car, or not being picked up by a trafficker because they're outside waiting for a young woman with a kid to walk out. You never know what the universe is stopping for you to be in that moment. So like, I choose not to worry my brain with it, because that's not my purpose here on earth, is to worry about why am I waiting in a line. It's not my purpose as to where my energy will go. That's my choice. And I make that choice every time, even no matter how inconvenient it seems or how frustrating it can be. I choose not to engage in it. And it's a choice, but it's a choice I've practiced, reflect on, and repeat it. And I know it works for me, so I keep doing it.
Yeah, oftentimes when I'm in the car with Charlotte, and we get a surprise, somebody feel like they have to cross two lanes in order to make a right-hand turn in front of us, right?
Right.
And it often crosses my mind. I hope they're not rushing to their death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are often times when you see that, especially on the highways, when people are driving, it's like, wow. And it's so funny. I think when I was in driver's school, they said, yeah, when you see that, just try to go around them so you don't see it. I like to stay in the back because I want to know what I'm, they might be protecting me for something that I don't want to cross. I'll just scoot back and I'll let y'all have it. Go ahead. Your life. Because that's not my life. I'm cool. Especially if I have my son in the car. No.
You've learned well.
Brother Kwame and Sister Jillian, I'm like, I want to jump in. It's like hopscotch. Like, let me. So this is a beautiful conversation. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to tap in. I love the question. I think that Elder Eunice asked about language and about explicit language. And I just believe that, and not even believe, I know from my experience that singular language is limiting. Like, we are way more than one lane. So culture, like someone asked you what culture is. And it's like, culture is so big that it's hard to be able to label every nuance. Yeah. Like, you have to do it by the moment. In this moment, I believe these are the cultures that are influencing me, because it's way bigger than anything that we can even consider, especially like what my culture is, right? It's a choice, like you were saying. But
and just before you go on, Sister Tiandra,
yes,
now
sir.
Jillian, this is one of our younger sisters who I most definitely wanted you to hook up with. So
you mentioned you in our conversation.
Oh shoot! I'm so excited.
All right, I yield.
Well, I just will say one more thing. Brother Kwame said that his niece was going to present, and I said, okay, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm going to have to figure it out. And so I'm so glad to be here. But with as far as like explicit language, how do you pronounce that word, Brother Kwame? Expletives? How do you say that word? Like
expletives or
expletives. So what I found in my walk, in the areas that I've been, and the people that I've been blessed to educate or be in that kind of role, is that I am very strategic in using it. One, you never know who you're around and what it means to them. If you go in and you're not, then sometimes you can come off so unhuman, or so even, and I hate to say this, not European, but like programmed to know that it was wrong. That it's like, who the F is this person coming in here trying to tell me what to do, or act like they can't even get past what I'm saying, let alone maybe what I look like, let alone where I come from, let alone how much money I have to even know who I am as a person. So I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm just going to say a cuss word in a place where I'm not supposed to say it and see what they do. And kids and children, anybody might test you like that, because it's like, I'm not going to let you in and show you my true self and colors because you already defined my worth based on one word that I said. not having any idea who I am, where I came from, where I'm going, what I'm going through in this moment. And so it's like, for me, I have to be true to myself. Like, I can have a mouth that's out of this world. And I come from a place where it's like, it's grown, and I'm very intentional about what I say and when I say it. But a lot of times I'll say F, right? And so instead of saying the 4-letter word, I just say F. And then when I spell it EFF. And that's when I educate people on what a euphemism is. Yep. And I'm saying I'm just using it to express the to heighten what I'm talking about right now. Even it's not in a negative way. I don't conform to good or bad. So it's just like right now I'm putting an exclamation point on it, but since it's not a written language, I need you to know that I added 3 exclamation points to what I just said. So I just be like, F, you know what I mean? And I can communicate myself in that way. And I think that it's so important. And that's why I'm really grateful for Elder Eunice's question. And I know that she's genuine and she cares, because she's somebody who immediately when I met her, I could communicate with her, because she knows exactly what we're talking about. And she doesn't get offended. Like, I'm an elder, I can't believe that your language, it's not that. She's actually trying to relate, communicate, connect. And so I just think what I would say, what I've learned is, let's all consider, like, when we hear the word, to realize that we might come with baggage for what that word means, but we might not necessarily know what it means to that person in that moment in time.
Yep. And I think what you're saying is so important, because, and there's 2 points that you brought to my brain in saying it. One of them is this idea of what you're talking about when you don't know what space you're in before you say something, and you don't know who you're going to impact or what that impact will have on your future opportunities, endeavors. There's a concept that this woman named Dr. Melissa Crum, she is a local professor here at Columbus. And
I know Dr. Crum.
Dr. Crum is dope, man. Amazing. But in one of her lectures that I had with her, she explained that there are some messages you serve up in a greasy bag from the bodega with some fries, because that's what those people want. And that's what there are also some places that you go in and you serve your message up in a satin box. And that's how you get your message across. It's not about, I shouldn't have to code switch, or I shouldn't have to change who I am for these messages. Focus on your goal. Like, if your purpose is to get a certain message across, get that message across.
Be strategic. Use it to your, because it's about being multilingual. So I heard Brother Kwame speaking to you in Spanish. It's like, okay, I can still pick up on that because I grew up in California. So I'm like, oh, I still know that. But it's like, literally, we are so multilingual and so rhythmic too, coming from indigenous African roots, that it's like we communicate without even making a sound. And we say some stuff that might be more deadly than what a 4-letter word is without saying anything, just based on how I looked at you. And not to say anything, look at me, do anything, or move any further.
That look.
And so it's that look. And it's like, who has that look? We have it, and especially as Black women, we have it. But as a Black indigenous culture, and not just Black, it's way more than that. But if you have it, you know what I'm talking about. And not everybody has it.
No, I think the looks you're talking about are very black culture. And I say that because it doesn't matter in what room I'm in. It doesn't matter if I'm in a college classroom that is 99% predominantly white, and there's one other Black person in that classroom. That one white person who made a really wild comment, I'm going to make eye contact with that one person. We both know who's going to check them. Like, which one? You got it? I got it. Or like, those are...
No, for sure. But that goes back to our dichotomy, though. Because our Black and African roots, our dichotomy is community. So we always are going to connect and be able to communicate to our community within a room full of people, never meeting each other before, because that's how we're wired.
Right. And that's something that I learned on Ohio State's campus, because it is a PWI through and through, no matter the fact that it's in Columbus, that is 40% not Black, Black and stuff. So there was a thread at one point going around on our social media that's like, if you're a Black girl and you would see a Black girl, smile at a Black girl. Because on our campus, there's not many. So when you do see them, it's like, smile. Because a lot of us have this face that it's like,
Yeah.
We have our face on because we don't want nobody to mess with us.
And the smile is not just for the Black girl that you see, but it's actually for yourself, because you're actually safe enough in that moment for yourself to allow yourself to smile and not repress it, because you're trying to protect yourself and be so effing on at all times, because nothing happens to me, because I know how to protect myself because of all the trauma that I've experienced and survived over generations.
Correct. Right. So another.
I saw somebody.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. So one thing that I want to point out about the language and how you're speaking with F, this, a word that is new to our vocabulary is period, right? That is a culturally accepted word at this point, to the point that I've seen it in Black ASL teachings.
So what's so funny is that I just was listening to a 90s mixtape or playlist, and it was either SUV or In Vogue or whatever, and they were singing, and then they were like, period. And I'm like, oh shoot, like this has actually been a part of our language for longer, and it just got resurrected. And so that's so dope.
Like, I've seen it on TikTok.
Who's knocking on the door?
I've seen it. It's literally like this, and the girls are showing what it is, and it has a actual, it's transforming, and it's moving through different cultures and languages, which is the beautifulest thing, because some people would say that's not professional language. At this point, I beg to differ, because the president could use it. So at this point,
it's not it's a capitalistic addition to the language, because just like bootylicious got added to the dictionary with Beyonce and Destiny's Child, money follows that, and it's a whole trend. And then everybody, so they don't care about what's professional, they care about what will sell. And if they are behind the curve and you're starting to create something before they created and got ahead of it to circumvent it and to add money to their pockets with it and affect their bottom line, that's when it's not professional, just when they haven't caught up yet.
Right, exactly. Let me switch this lane, because Eunice asked a question about 20 minutes ago about this language leading you to a dark place. And I want to switch to that, Warrior Tiandra, if that's okay.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, cool. I appreciate having this conversation with you. This is awesome.
And Tiandra, why don't you stay on the line so you guys can dialogue?
Yep, stay on the line. Exactly.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to go back, because so in my presentation, when I talked about this dark place, I was trying to find in my presentation to be real explicit about it. What I meant with that is that I think this was the main thing about moving from self-hate to self-love in our language that we have with our own selves and the conversations we have with ourselves. And what I meant is that when you have conversations with yourself rooted in self-hate about what you can do, about what you can't engage in, about all those kind of things, I think what it can do is it can take you to this really cyclic, self-destructive place. So what I mean by this is I have a friend who I like to use my friends as examples because they're near and dear to my heart, and I learn from them every day. I have a friend who had found herself in a precarious situation where she is pregnant by a married guy. She didn't know he was married. He lied to her and deceived her, but she, continually told herself that she was stupid, that she was foolish for getting herself in a situation. She was dumb and all these things. And I'm like, I understand what you're feeling, but you weren't dumb because you trusted somebody. You weren't stupid because something happened you both adults made some conscious decisions that things could happen here. Now, what's harsh is that you didn't know what situation he was in, and he deceived you of that. You've been deceived. You're not stupid. But her staying and having these dark self-hatred comments takes her into a really dark, isolated place where it becomes depression filled and anxiety filled and suicidal and those kind of things. So when I talk about language, that's what I mean, that sometimes this language that we use can take us to a very dark place.
I talked to her, Mom.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jillian, it's about the energy behind what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Because you hear Maya Angelou be so adamant on the fact that we should not ever say the N-word. It doesn't matter what it ends in, what letter it comes from, who's saying it, who they're saying it to. It doesn't matter. And it's like she's an elder that, and an ancestor now, that I truly respect and feel like there is beautiful, positive intent behind what she's saying, right? But I forget what song, which rapper used it, where I can literally like hear them, like, and it just makes me think of like Rosa Parks and Outkast. And I think how Rosa Parks was like, I don't want my name to be used in the song, or maybe it was Kanye before Kanye was Kanye, but Kanye's still Kanye, so it's okay, he'll be all right. Anyway, with that, I'm a person that will use the N-word as I reference myself, as endearment. But then I recognize sometimes that I use it in a derogatory way. There are some ways that I'll say it and it still has an A, but I'll say it and I'll be like, come on, like for real, like that. And then I'll say it, then I'll find myself saying it about somebody who's not even a part of the Black culture. And then I'm like, I can't even say that in a derogatory way as it pertains to you, because you don't get the benefit of being referred to as a beautiful Black goddess, God, whatever. So it's like being very intentional about how, and the energy behind what we're saying and who we're saying it to and when we're saying it, I think matters, because it's not necessarily the word, because you can say something flippantly and be like, oh, I was just playing, but it's like, were you really, and what's behind it? And so,
yeah, no, and what you're saying is so true. So something that I've done for years, and I mean years, is I refer to a lot of people as boss. So whether it's someone who's like cleaning up the table, who's cleaning the building, it doesn't matter to me what stage of life you're in. It could be someone who is, begging for money on the nearest highway, right? Here you go, have a great day, boss. And I use that term very intentionally because everybody's the boss of their own life. And I want you to know that, even if you don't believe that about yourself. And for me, that's just like one of those terms of endearments I give people. And I give it very selflessly because I see that in myself. And that's cool. I'm happy to share the space. It doesn't bother me to have a room full of bosses. It's great. But there's been people I told that to, and it lit their face up, because I don't think they've heard someone talk so nicely or highly to them in so long. And it makes me extremely sad, because it's, sometimes we can't pour into ourselves like that if we're in a self-hate space. It's hard.
And then like that sadness turns into beauty, because there's beauty in ashes. Like, so that even using that word sad, like, is it sad now, or can you push past the fact that, you know what, this isn't sad, this is actually beautiful. I felt something, but it's beautiful because in that moment they can transcend that. And you never know if tomorrow they're literally like the boss of Mega Millions because they got lit up, And so in the same way, I use the word lady a lot, and I say, yes, ma'am, no, sir. Like just now I just said, because to me, that's how I was raised. I was raised in a military home as well, in a Black home, in a country home. So it's like, out of respect, that's what you do. Thank you, welcome, yes, sir, no, ma'am. And I say that I say it to everybody, but I say it to my students who are much younger than me. I say it to children, because in that, I am just showing respect. And then that is something where people can be offended. I'm not that old. I'm da-da-da. Understand, it has nothing to do with age. It's just something that I come from. But then I can hear what they're saying and make the necessary adjustment. If it's something that they're repulsed by, then I might not use that moving forward, because I want to be respectful of how they receive it.
What you're saying, it resonates, and it moves differently for other people. So like for me, I know exactly what you're saying, and I do the same thing often. And the reason I've done that, and that's actually maybe a few years ago, where I've really rooted in it. At some point, I would be like, well, we're almost like the same professional level. Like, I'm gonna call you by your first name. And there's, especially in academia and places where you become cordial with your professors or advisors and stuff, they'll be like, oh, just call me Susan. I'm like, no, I'm gonna call you Dr. B. I might not call you your full name because your last name's kind of hard, but I'm still gonna call you doctor every time. And if I ever meet someone, when I meet someone who's in grad school or who has hopes and dreams of being a doctor one day, I'm like, hey, Dr. Devon, how are you doing today? Even with my kids. And I only do that now because someone did that with me. I told a principal of a building when I was an undergrad, like, yeah, I want to be a principal one day. I want to be a doctor one day. I said all these things when he asked me who I was and what my plans were. And ever since then, I'm Dr. Deas. Every time he sees me, it's a hug.
Listen,
Hey, Dr. Deas, how you doing? And it's like, man, thank you for reaffirming me, because sometimes I don't know that I'll make it there, but you remind me, and I appreciate that.
Jillian, but this is the thing, like, you've already made it there, because my grandmother has always called me doctor.
That's 100% opposite of the way.
Has always called me doctor. And ever since I was young, like, I have a gift of healing. Literal. And it's okay. Like, I don't care if anybody cares if I say it or not. It just is what it is. And I ended up going to medical school. And then I went to medical school and I was like, y'all are going to pay me to teach y'all some stuff. And so I dropped out of medical school, and then my first contract in my business was with Cleveland Clinic in medical schools. And so, like, for so long, people would say, like, oh, that's a doctor, that's my doctor, that's my doctor. And I'd be like, no, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a doctor. You're your own best doctor from within. Like, it was very important for me to, like, get that through to people. But now it's like people call me that, and I was like, you know what? I am a mother effing doctor, because I know more than the doctors know, just because I'm open to what God has to say about certain stuff, and I'm listening to the person across from me, and I haven't been programmed through the 8 years of school where they don't know what they don't know anymore.
Yep.
And so it's just what you're saying, like, we are so much more. And then now for me, I'm just Tiandra, a child of God, warrior, whatever you want to call me, because I'm so much more than any title or zone or thing. It's like, what do you do? Who are you? I'm Tiandra. Like, what day is today? Like, what moment is this moment? What do you need? Like, it just depends. But that's why it's so important. So I definitely resonate with what you were saying.
Yeah.
And this is what I do want to say, though. Being Black in Western society, being a Black woman in Western society, being a period, because Black women,
Yeah,
I'm just going to say this boldly and with my chest, are received in this society as more attractive and as younger than what their chronological age is, like you all were speaking about with the 21-day fast prior. And so when I am in certain positions professionally and I have a team of 50, or I'm at the table in the same lane as somebody who is 3 times my senior and has a PhD and I do not, I have to, now I realize sometimes there are times where if I'm not calling them by their first name, like you were saying, like Susan, then the tone in which I say Dr. B, with all due respect, I am just as much qualified to be at this table. And so you're going to listen to what I say. And just because I'm not 55 and white and with a PhD does not discount what I have to say because you think I'm cute and you're intimidated by me and you think that I look like I'm 21.
Yep.
That's on you.
Yep.
So,
and you see that, and see, I see that in my educational spaces, because when you work with the students I prefer to work with, which are Black and brown students in this urban space, because that's where I'm from, that's what my experience has been, and that's who I, have a true passion for. When I go into my school buildings and I have to deal with the teachers who, have 30 years tenure and think they know that every kid's the same, and this kid they're just like all the others. And I'm like, I haven't seen it that way. And that hasn't been my experience with that, that kid. Or, oh, that kid just cusses all day. And I'm like, I think that kid has a really interesting way of communicating and expressing their feelings, but at least they're expressing them. And you have to and they look at you crazy, like, oh, you don't know anything. You're just new. You just started teaching. You'll learn. You'll get used to it. And I'm like, I don't know that I will, but you carry on your way, and I'm gonna carry on mine. And the way the kids interact with me will be very different the way they interact with you, and I don't know what to tell you.
Pay attention to what I'm doing and trying to get you hip to game. That's what I know what to tell you. No, I worked at
do that. The thing with me is I've learned that not every fight is my fight, not every war is my battle, and it's a personal problem for you.
That's right, but you know how important language is. So sometimes the way that you communicate to Dr. B, when I'm really calling you Susan and I might be calling you something else that's not your name, might keep them open enough to see what I'm saying, because not every student is going to come through me. So I used to work at the university level, and before these young people got in, they would see what their name was, what their test score was, and say, oh no, that's not their major. We're going to get them to change their major. We're going to assign them to this advisor because they're never going to get through nursing. What did I just hear? You're literally profiling these young people based on their name and their test scores before you even hear their story or see their beautiful spirit walk in here.
Yep.
But what I realized is that, like you said, we can't be the one person that's doing sprints, going across the room, helping everybody and trying to intercept and encourage and help and support. And I know that you're tired, Miss Susan, so I got you lunch. So I can take this last student for you if you'd like. We can't do that all the time because it's not sustainable.
Right.
And so because it's not sustainable, that's why we can switch up like when it's time. It's not always time.
Yep. It's sad that the practice you're saying, were practices, the same practices that happened a year ago, or not a year ago, but 50 years ago. Because my dad's name was David, and I will never forget that he worked for the local city water pollution control plant as the engineer there for their cars, the lead mechanic. And I never forget that he told me he got the interview because they thought he was a white guy because his name was David. And so for years, he worked there as the only Black man in that whole space, simply because they thought he was a white guy. And, it's sick to think that these things still happen, and it's not even sick. It's actually unsurprising, right? To say the least. But yeah, language is important, and language is really intuitive and integrated into what we need life to change and how it needs to go. And how life changes for our people, and our people is whatever you choose our people to be.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on just two things. It's always been my thing to work toward communication. I may not necessarily understand your words, but I may understand the intonation. I may understand the body expression. There's different things I use to incorporate the wholeness, if you will, or the embodiment of what you're saying. And so first and foremost is communication. Am I communicating? If I'm not, then maybe I need someone like Tiandra to step in and say, okay, sis, you take this over because it doesn't seem like I'm getting through. Well, the second point was, growing up in Marion, Ohio, grandma, first and foremost, but I came from a neighborhood where respect was given. You didn't have to earn it. It was given. Now you could lose it. But first and foremost, it was given. And that's how, at least in my upbringing, my experience, that's how we got down. You gave respect. And I'll yield there.
No, I think Ashe, that's it. And what kills me, and this you pulled it back to modeling. And for some reason, I was already looking up some of my examples I had for modeling, and you brought it right back to modeling. It was given, and that's how it should be. Because, if you don't have any negative assumptions about that person, which it's not healthy to carry negative assumptions about somebody you don't know, or have given you no reasons to have them, why would you not respect them? But teachers think that way. Parents think that way. There's so many upper authoritative, figures, and especially for kids, that think that way. And I struggle with that because they didn't do anything to deserve my respect. They can lose it, like you said, and then I help them regain it, right? I want to just lean in some positivity modeling for behaviors because I have the examples up. One example that I had was when parents tell their kids to share and be generous with what they have, yet they have never made any donations or they don't get involved in charity or volunteer work at all. So you want your kids to earn your respect by donating and sharing and all those things, but you don't do it. It's confusing for modeling. Another one, and this I think some people might have seen take place before, is when a parent tells their kids to take responsibility for their behavior and their choices, yet when they forget about the child's dentist appointment, they argue with the receptionist and tell her she made a scheduling error. These are two things that, like, the respect you want your kids or your people around you to have, you got to demonstrate and you got to model it. You also give it, but you got to show them what you mean and put teeth to what the behaviors you expect from them are. So I just wanted to pull that back to that presentation from 2 weeks ago, because that was a great follow-up.
That also reminded me of something, and it had to do with making mistakes. So if I remember the saying correctly, it says something about you don't judge a person for the mistake they made, but you judge them for how they recover from the consequences of the mistake they made.
Yeah.
So again,
Ashe, that's it. It's every experience we have has a consequence. Every single thing we do. If I choose to go buy some more crystals from the crystal store, I cannot be upset that my bank account is lower than when I walked out my front door. That's a consequence of going to buy more crystals.
Ashe, in consequence, for whatever reason, has become a negative connotation, right? But that's not what it is. It's just cause and effect.
And there's two sides to that. I go to buy my crystals because I want more peace and more energy and more whatever crystals I'm buying. The reason I'm buying them have some type of thing that they're going to benefit my life. So there's a positive consequence, and there's a negative consequence for me because it's less money in my bank account. There's two sides to this sword here. And that's the same thing with every interaction. If I read somewhere, it was like maybe a Facebook meme or something. It said, yelling at your kids right before they go to bed and right before they go to sleep is not going to help them go to sleep. It's like, yeah, that's probably not going to help them rest and relax if you yell at them to go to sleep. But that's the consequence. Maybe you don't intend that consequence to happen. I think that's what happens in my policy work that I focus on when we lay out legislation and practices that are like, hey, you intended for this action to come out of it, or you thought by doing something you would get this exponent out of it, but you didn't. You got something else. You got an unintended consequence. And how you deal with that, I think, is more so what tells you about the person, is the unintended consequences that they get. Because most people don't go into things thinking about the consequences they don't want.
I know that's right. Well, did anybody else have any? Were there any more questions in the chat room, or?
I think I covered them. Let me see. Yeah, I talked about the modeling behavior because Elder Phyllis had a question about modeling behavior, and I came back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's everything I had to kind of expand on my end.
All right. Well, elders, did you want to draw this to a close, or? All right, then. I guess I'll draw it to a close. Well, my beloved, I am again just so proud. And to hear you and Sister Tiandra kicking it, I'll tell you, that is just rich. And don't be surprised if you get invited back to be on a panel with Sister Tiandra, because we could definitely use your spirits and the wisdom you've accumulated to this point.
Yeah.
And share it. So again, I thank you. And Give Jalil a big hug from his Uncle Calvin. And don't for you could add on Kwame, just so he don't get confused. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Raise him up right.
But yeah, that's all. So
I appreciate you guys having me here. And Tiandra, we'll connect. Thank you all for your comments and questions. It's been really fun to dialogue about this stuff.
Ashe, can you see and hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I've been talking and I don't know what happened to my tech, but because I was just saying, like, Dr. Deas or whatever, I think Jillian is more than enough. Whatever.
We lost you again. We lost you.
An opportunity ongoing. So thank you, Brother Kwame, because of your intentionality and leadership in raising up a village. I think that you can feel your energy and I think our confidence even in knowing that we do have value to add and to not bite our tongue and to not think that we're weird or crazy or over the top by expressing exactly what we have to express the exact way that it comes to us. So I'm grateful for the platform, Brother Hatim.
Yeah.
And and to the elders and everything. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, family, we will say one love. All right, Jillian, you be good.
All right. Thank you all. All right.
Love you, baby girl.
Love you. Bye, guys.
Did everybody leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody left. It's just us. Let me see.
But you mean you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Been able to hear you.
I can hear you too, Elder Tony.
Well, I have to say something. Can I say something?
Work. Yes, sir. That ain't gonna work. Go ahead. Nothing. Go ahead, Elder.
That conversation was extremely valuable. And especially the young brother that said, teaching an old dog new tricks, Kwame. Just to be short, what y'all were really talking about from another perspective is how us who wanted to enter the understanding of an African-centered worldview from the drummer's point of view and the dancer's point of view, what we have the hardest time getting our people to understand that this is a language. It's multiple languages. And that was the hardest thing that we had to understand. Was in the beginning, we were trained that it was just, beats. And it was so far out from it was nowhere near beats. And we have to, like the sister said, and the two sisters was talking, we're just gonna put them on a little thing and like go on a cruise with them because let's listen to them talk. But that's my opinion.
Well, I value your opinion.
But this piece of practice, reflect and repeat. The first thing that we had to understand when we were trying to understand how to be drummers for our culture here in here is how to listen to the sound of that of the culture that we were trying to say that we were from. We really had to go inside and really learn a new way of listening, a new way of feeling, and a new way of seeing, and then a new way of speaking. And our way of speaking the drum is a little different from our brothers and sisters of the continent, but it's still the same because our folks, when they hear ours, they respond. For instance, if I was to do something from the continent, I could do that, right? But our culture sitting in the thing, they ain't hearing that because we don't do that thing that you were talking about earlier, Brother Kwame, respect our own stuff. So what I would have to do is while I'm doing that, and now they're there.
And Baba,
yeah.
That's what I appreciate because I've learned that from you. And as soon as you started talking about the drum and language, like that's even what I was referencing before, is that we cannot be limited by one singular understanding of what language is. And so, but what I push back on is like our language and our intent when we're saying that we don't connect here. We do connect, and I'm just respectfully let me have the confidence to articulate what I need to say to it.
Y'all, it was tight.
Like there's something in our spirit and in our roots and our ancestors that like live through and breathe through us that we know that beat. But some of us are still unlearning the programming not to recognize that beat. So not all of us know it. And I think it's very important for us to say, like, not that we don't connect to it, but we're remembering to connect, or we're coming to it, or you know, we're it's in us, it's in you. But then if I just have to put it, that's why I might say F or the whole word in class, because it's like, no, you hear what I'm saying. Like, but let me just get your attention real quick to snap you back, and then then you catch the beat, and then you can ride the wave with me the rest of the time because you know that I am you, and so I'm speaking to you, and so because a young lady, she's not that much younger than what I decide to be on most days. She had been taught traditionally African dance and drumming, and I've never been taught, but I feel like it's just in me because of where I've been around and the lands that I literally grew up on and how rich the soil was.
You just hit on it.
Well, but I'm saying she was so scared still.
Whatever you're drinking, you don't take.
She was scared still, even in her 20s, to move naturally because she was like, oh, I've been chastised before to say that this isn't the correct language. And it's like, but it is, like, and they're looking at me.
You're on it. You're hitting
They're looking at me moving like, oh, where were you trained at? And it's like, I wasn't trained, but it's just in me. So just let it be in you.
You're hitting it. And that's our hill we have to climb. That's what Brother Kwame and I think the others were saying. That's our hill we have to climb. We're climbing it. It's there. We're doing it. We don't have to worry about it. Because like a lot of times, I go to places and folks don't know me or anything like that. And they say, oh, that's an old guy, and he's got a drum there, so he's gonna play the old thing. So we have to slow down for him and stuff like that. Or the traditional Africans have their language. So that's part, like you guys were saying. That's just part from the way I have to do it now. Because remember, 99% of us here came to our culture as entertainers. We did not come to our cultures as spiritual people, as people who were keepers of the culture, or people who what we are. So our whole image thing is from an imitator's point of view, and we even took on and put on that cloak. And sometimes we can't communicate because we're entertaining. And so we had to flip the script and put in there entertain as well as educate.
Right. So and that's where you get edutainment, right?
That's right. So you guys were talking about that, I guess that dichotomy of being in your own head and not knowing your own head when you're in your own head trying to get into somebody else's head about the culture. I mean, the conversation, from my perspective, was like totally, and the silence that was there from the rest of the group was beautiful, because everybody was listening and contemplating on. Because remember, in that book, the King James book, if I'm not mistaken, somebody throw me a rescue line. The 3 or 4 words in the beginning, it was the Word. That's
the word was God.
Yeah,
Who's
but
that
that's
guy?
but the word. See, in the beginning it was the word, and that's the way that culture approaches stuff. Our culture doesn't have our opening statements like that. It's from a different perspective. So the sister, you and all y'all, when we were talking about the words, how do we interpret these words and all that? So all I had to say was like, I'm up here trying to fix this window, and I done took everything down, and now I gotta go. I would just like to say, and my wife is behind me giving me the look, because right now you can look out of my window and see the whole
I'm giving you the word.
the whole community, and she giving me the word to get back and cover this thing up. So anyway, I'm going to go back on mute. I just want to tell y'all,
No, I totally enjoy
this is this has been what I like. When the sister brought the young people over to the Y. You remember what I'm talking about? When you brought the young people to the Y when I was over there speaking,
I remember, yeah.
and I asked the culture, I asked them, I said there was a word that really hurt me, that I couldn't stand.
Sure.
Stand. And see, you gave it away already.
That's because you
But it
got that
wasn't
window, and
Negro.
I can feel
It,
Mama
it,
sitting
it,
there glaring at you.
yeah, it wasn't Negro. It wasn't being colored. It wasn't none of that, because I'm growing up in Harlem where everybody got slang words for everybody. And my word was shorty. That's the way you call me short, boy. That was it. I don't care what them other words was. But short, oh my God.
How am I short and I can dunk better than
Do you
all of
remember?
y'all?
Do you remember the other word I had? My other one?
Coke bottle, Coke.
Yeah, Coke bottle. What would that refer to?
Your glasses.
Glasses.
No, glasses. I was polarized. You wore glasses. In order for you to fight or do anything, you had to take your glasses off. I'm telling you, them were fighting words. Look, you short, four-eyed. Oh, Lord, here we go. All right, I got to get back to work. Thank y'all for letting me run
Give
off.
give Mama Aziza a kiss for me.
No, you tell her. She's over here messing with me.
Love you, Mama Aziza.
I thoroughly appreciated everything. Okay. No,
Yeah, we're gonna go listening now.
But since I'm talking, let me just say this. So when we go into the schools and we talk about the particularly West African drum and dance, and we're doing some,
Educate.
and as you spoke about, like using the drum sound, and then Baba Tony changes over
Well, the
to.
other lady, young sister's not there.
Well, I know, but you just mentioned this, and so
I'm
and
here,
then Baba
listening.
Tony. Okay, and then thank you. Then Baba Tony switches over to the doom dot, the doom doom dot, to the today's sound, right? So then what we do is we show them, at least I do, then I begin to show them, like, maybe what's the current within that setting of people, students, little people, whatever you want to call it, or their age grade. And I'll do like some of the floss, with that rhythm. And then
Right.
I'll also
And you start
do
the
like,
heel toe.
and that's right, the heel toe, I'll do the shoe, right?
Yeah.
And then Baba Tony changes back into like a con, to a rhythm that still has maybe a fast 4/4, slow 4/4, whatever it goes, so they can realize the similarity that it came from the African drum beat, where it stemmed from. We make mention of those things. And then they're happy because we related to something that they can recall, they join in, and they can begin to utilize the sound.
That's right.
And so we make the statement. Okay, I'm off. Tony's stopping me now. He said, okay, Mama Ziza. But okay, listen. So I thoroughly appreciate that.
And let them know I'm back in white.
And what gave us a good ear too is because subconsciously or knowingly that you are so much younger than what we are.
Oh my God.
So we heard the voice.
Young stuff
We
out.
heard the voice of you, the youth, knowing that what you're getting and what we have to carry on, in the sense that, yes, we can continue to relate, but how we do it, like you made mention, it's how you do it. Thank you so much. Baba Tony's on his way back outside. Here, T. Okay, again, Kwame, and to one love. He's out. He's going a little bit.
Don't hang up.
Okay, I'm not hanging up. It is. It's snowing a little bit. He's going to the car to get the. Okay. Thank you. You stay safe. I'm not hanging up. Tony's going to do that when he comes back in. So there you are. Thank you much.
Again, thank you so much, Sister Tiandra. You guys were awesome.
No,
Man.
thank you. Your niece is
Gosh.
amazing. But that's why I told you I had to figure out how am I going to be here? How am I going to be here? So thank you. Thanks, Brother Hatem.
Yeah, she kept dinging me. Here, I'm gonna send you the link. Let me just send you the link.
Thank
She
you.
wasn't accepting to just be. She couldn't type fast enough, so she was ready.
I couldn't type and drive.
Right.
And do a million things.
Well, we'd rather you drive than try
Thank
to
you.
type at the
Thank
same-
you, Brother Kwame. Or I could type and drive, but the technology wouldn't keep up. We would just be going too fast. But I shouldn't say that out loud. But all right, I love y'all. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Peace.
All right, one
peace.
love.
All right. Thank you for joining us, family. And as usual, we are out.
Whoa, wait a minute. Take you out with a drum call.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right.
He just brought this 104 in
Yeah.
rod in the house too.
Love it. Love it. I've known rivers, ancient dusty rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the river. Thank you.
And we haven't been drinking or smoking. All righty then. I say.
What is a lion without his pride? What is a whale without his pod? What is a monkey without his troop? What is a wolf without his pack? The answer is very simple. They are the same thing that a human being is without a tribe. Pray.
Agenda. So from the surface, he might look a little black. Just a little smidge. But then on the inside,
Let me show you how to do hot smoke. Okay.